Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at another Euro game. This is one that I discovered while at Essen 2014. It wasn't on my radar, and I was happy that I stumbled across it. So I guess a little bit of spoiler, I like the game, but this is one that I was glad to pick up, and this is Murano by Inka and Marcus Brand. Published by Lookout Games and Mayfair here in the United States in collaboration. And this is going to be a game that uses a rondelle, kind of a modified rondelle, in order to allow players to take different actions, but will allow you to move multiple pieces on that rondelle as long as you have the money to do so. You're trying to build up the economy on different islands and have characters delivered to that island by your gondolier in order to score points by the end of the game. And whoever best kind of manages all three of these aspects, their gondoliers, the characters, and the constituents on the island, is going to score the most points and win. So real quick, why don't we take a look at how this interesting interaction works. We'll come and see what's inside the box, of course, and then we'll come back at the end and I'll give you my opinions on Murano. So here you can see the components for Murano, which is obviously a Euro game, which is going to use a semi-modified rondelle. You'll see these boats along the outside. You're going to be moving these boats in order to take actions. Each player is controlling a group of gondoliers and is trying to expand the economy on each of these different islands, and will have different character cards that will allow them to score these islands at the end of the game, dependent on different characteristics or different types of scoring characteristics or qualifications that will get them more or less points at the end of the game. A player is going to start the game with 5 gondoliers. You can see these little pawns here that are their gondoliers that they're going to be using to try and position for scoring. They're going to have cubes that are going to show them ownership on different buildings they might build, and they're going to start with some money. They also start with 5 victory points and some more gondoliers that they can get throughout the game if they decide to purchase them, or they can fire gondoliers in order to get some money. On a player's turn, they're essentially going to be taking their action by moving one of these boats. You'll see all of these boats have set starting positions, and there are actions corresponding to the boats around the outside of this kind of rondelle. There is one red boat, which is a special boat that you can move only if you have a special card that you can get throughout the game, and only one player will be able to move this differently than the other players. Otherwise, it's simply a normal boat. Just picture it as black unless you have the special card. On your turn, you're going to move one of these boats. And when you move these boats, you can move them as far as the boat that's in front of them. Not up to it or not onto it, but to the space just before it, or any space in between. So for example, this boat can move to this space. This boat can move to this space, but this boat can move to this space. And this boat right here can move to either of these two spaces, and so it depends on where the boats are. Thus, you'll see when you move a boat, you're going to change the available actions for the boats behind it. This boat can now land on this space, or this space. In addition, you can pay money to move multiple boats. When you pay money to move multiple boats, let's say, for example, this guy or this player wanted to take this action, but first he'd need to move this boat out of the way. The first boat you move is always free, but the next boat is going to cost you 1 money. The one after that will cost you 2, and the one after that 3. So sometimes you may need to move multiple boats. For example, if this boat wanted to be moved onto this space, you'd need to move 3 boats first, and this last one would cost you 4 money in order to move, or sorry, 3 money, so it would cost you a total of 6. So, on your turn, you're going to move as many boats as you need to move in order to take the action, paying the appropriate money, 1 for the second boat, 2 for the third boat, 3 for the fourth boat, and so forth and so on. And then you're going to take the action of the last boat you move. So if I were to move this boat to get it out of the way, that would cost me nothing, and then I would move this boat to pay $1, and then I would take this action. This action allows me to pay 3 money to hire a new gondolier, or to fire a gondolier and get 3 money. Hiring a gondolier means to take it from this area here and put it in my supply, while firing one means to take one from my supply and place it back, which I no longer have access to. The other actions on the board are going to do many, many different things. Some of them will get you buildings, some of them will get you money. Let's cover all of them real quickly because they don't take that long to cover. This one here will simply get you 2 money for going to it. This one here will let you buy a glass factory. When you buy a glass factory, you will buy one of these tiles, and you'll place it in front of you that you can build it later. Glass factories will let you make glass later, which you can then sell for victory points. The next one here, if you land on this one, we'll come back to. This one here will let you spend 2 money to buy a special building. These special buildings, when you build them, will get you cards, which will give you special abilities throughout the game. We'll then go to here. You may pay 2 money to buy the top white building, which are shops. These are shops that you can sell things to. There'll be customers on the island, and if you get those customers, you'll be able to sell to those customers and get some money. So that's one option. Or you can pay 4 money and go through that stack of shops and pick whichever one you like. So maybe you need a specific color of shop. There are white or black and blue. It all depends on which color you want, but you can search through there and find the one you want for only 4 money. You can also buy palaces. For 2 money, you can take the top palace, and these have some numbers of shields on them. This one has 2. Or for 4 money, you can search through the stack and find whichever one you need, be it something with 1 or some that might have 3 on them. Again, when you buy these, they all go in front of you. You'll note there are some multiple spaces for some of these, like you can get a glass factory over here, or you can buy a shop on this space over here. Once you've acquired some buildings, we'll go talk about this building space over here. You can land on this space to build 1 to 3 of your acquired buildings, which would be sitting in front of you. These buildings are going to give you victory points. If they're glass factories, they'll be worth 1. If they're shops, they're worth 2. And if they're the palaces, they're worth 3. And you can build these out to the board. I'll show you how in just a moment. Building the special buildings will let you pick up 3 of these cards, and will let you choose one of them to keep. And these are going to give you different special abilities based on what they say on them. So you'll choose one of them to keep. This one here says every time you build a special building or a palace, you get 1 victory point. So that's an ability only you would have. Or this one here says every time you place a gondolier on your own or an opponent's space in the area, you haven't seen that yet, you pay less money. So it's just going to be just for you. Or a third one here, every time you build a shop or glass factory, you get a victory point. So we had 2 different victory point ones. Actually, no, every time you build the palaces or the special buildings, you get a victory point. It all depends on which card you decide to choose. The other 2 you would return. Finally, you can build streets, and streets are free but get you no victory points, but they're necessary out on the board. So when you build, you must always build next to a street. And since there are no streets in the starting board, the first person to build will have to build a street. They can take the top street of the pile, and usually this would be 1 pile, but you'll see it's far too large right now. But they can take the top street of the pile, and they can place it out where they want it to be. So you'll see that you can place these out here on any of these cobblestoned areas. So maybe the player decides they want to build one right here. Then they can build buildings next to these streets, and buildings must always be built next to streets. When we look at buildings, we'll see that they have a little street on them on one edge. So you can make sure it's built next to a street by lining those 2 up. When you build a shop or you build a glass factory, you're going to place a marker on it showing that you own that area, and then you can earn points based on these later. And you can build up to 3 buildings on your turn in the appropriate manner, and scoring the victory points or getting the cards for each of those that you build. So that's building buildings. You may also get cards, and you're going to need these character cards in order to win the game, essentially in order to score points at the end of the game. When you land on this space here, or the corresponding one on the other side of the board, you're going to draw 3 of these character cards from the top of this stack. You are then going to look at them and decide whether you want to buy one. And if you currently have none, the first one you buy will cost you $1. You'll return the other 2 to the bottom of the stack, and then the next time you buy a card, it will cost you $2, and $3, and $4, so forth and so on throughout the game. Now these cards are going to be a way to score points at the end of the game, and you're going to want to collect them and then correspond them to different islands that you're able to place gondoliers on throughout the game. So you'll see, for example, if you have an island that you have a gondolier on that has at least 1 red building, 1 yellow building, 2 red customers, and a black customer, you're going to be able to trade money in for victory points at the end of the game. Or this one says you get 1 victory point per shield that's on an island. That's going to be these palaces that are built out there. You'll want a lot of them on 1 island in order to score a lot of victory points. Or we have this one here that says if you have at least 1 gondolier on San Donato, you may exchange up to 3 different red gems or 3 red glass pieces for 7 points apiece. So depending on what you've been doing in the game or what your plan is, you'll choose one of these 3 cards, pay the money, and then return the other 2 to the supply. There are 3 more actions that are out on this board. One is producing glass. If you've built a factory out onto the board, and you happen to claim it and have it out on the board, you can use this spot in order to activate your factories to produce glass. You can activate as many factories as you've built on any number of islands that you want, paying 2 points, losing 2 points for each one that you activate. However, when you pull these out, or when you do this, you're going to pull 1 gem or 1 piece of glass out of this bag for each factory you activate. So you're trying to collect different pieces of glass. Once you've done this, you can turn in 3, 2, or 1 pieces of the same colored glass for $20, $12, or $5. And of course, having this money is good because it will allow you to do various things throughout the game, such as advance boats that are in your way in order to take the actions that you need. You can move gondoliers, and so having gondoliers out on islands is important for the end of game scoring. It costs you $2 to move one of your gondoliers from your supply out to your own colored gondolier circle next to an island. This one corresponds to this island here, this one to this island here, and you'll see they all have a dock near them to show which island they correspond to. Having a gondolier will allow you to score 1 card for that island. So you'll look at the stats of that island. This one needs you to be on this island right here, which is good because that's where he's at. So if I had this card, I would want a gondolier here. I would want to have 3 pieces of glass and trade them in for 21 points at the end of the game. And I would move my gondolier here to show that I'd used him to do that. If I wanted to score a second card on this same island, I would need a second gondolier there. And you can see I only have 1 spot. However, I can pay $5 to place another one of my gondoliers on anybody else's spot on that island, blocking them out from using their own and forcing them to pay $5 if they want to place on somebody else's. The last action spot is right here, and that is selling to customers. Now you'll see that these tiles on them, these street tiles, have customers on them. Some do, some don't. What you're trying to do with shops is to build shops on islands that have customers that match their color. So for example, this one is a black shop. I would want a black customer or multiple black customers to be on that island. When I sell, I'm going to choose any one island, and all of my shops on there, one of each color, can sell to the customers that are there. So if there were red and black customers and I had a red and a black shop, I could sell to both. The way this is going to work is that the number of customers is going to pay out $1 for the color of shop. So right now, my black would pay out 1. But if there were multiple black customers, I would get $1 for each. Likewise, if I had a red and a black shop and there were red and black customers, I'd get $1 for each customer on that island that I could put into my supply. The game is going to progress until basically 2 of these different stacks are gone. So all of the streets, or all of the shops, all of the palaces, all of the glass factories, or all of the special buildings have been built. 2 of those different piles. When this happens, each player is going to get 1 more turn, except for the player that triggered the end of the game. Once you're done, you're going to get points for your character cards. So essentially, you're going to look at how many gondoliers you have on the board, and hopefully you have 1 gondolier for each of your character cards that you've managed to accumulate throughout the game. You're going to use those gondoliers on their appropriate islands and match up a card that you have in your hand to score that specific island. So this one has to be done on this island, but some of the other cards, for example, 1 per shield that's on an island, can be used anywhere as long as you have a gondolier to move onto that island to score the card. So you need both a character, the card, and a gondolier to transport that character to the island in order to score the points. Obviously, some cards are going to be worth more points than others, and it's choosing the right cards for your strategy throughout the game that's going to get you the most victory points and allow you to win. And whoever best matches that up and scores victory points and gets money throughout the game and allows them to take more actions is going to be the winner. And there you have it. That is Murano by Inca and Marcus Brand. That's kind of a mouthful a little bit there, but the game is very good. As I said, I discovered it at Essen. It was one of the few games that I sat down at Essen and played an entire game of, and then had to have it after that. So the intricacies of trying to plan what's on the island, and of course having other players trying to modify that island at the same time, how to move those different gondolas on the rondel out there, and of course I was lucky enough in my first play to get the special card that allows you to move the red gondola in a special way, but figuring out how to use those gondolas in order to best get the action you want, or pay money to push other gondolas in order to get the action you need to get to, is very difficult and requires a lot of planning, a lot of money sometimes in the game, and just sometimes isn't possible. So you're kind of in a stalemate waiting for other players to move the boats that you want to move before you can take an action and trying to figure out how to get the best actions in the meantime. Coordinating the contents of those islands with having a gondolier on each one of those spots can be sometimes difficult because other players take your positions and then you have to pay more money in order to place out on the island. That can be frustrating at times. And then on top of that, having a character card that's going to work well for an island sometimes gets screwed with halfway through your plan. So you'll be planning an island and it will all of a sudden take a turn because of what somebody else does, and now you have to readjust. Sometimes having extra character cards is a good plan there because you can switch between the two if something changes. So it's a game about diversity, having different options, making sure you have gondoliers, making sure you have character cards, and trying to score as many points as possible, sometimes by having a lot of money and just being able to move and take the appropriate actions. So if you like a lot of variety in your games, you like a constantly changing dynamic, and you like a little bit of luck based on what cards you draw, but not too much luck, definitely check this one out. That is Murano from Lookout Games, and in the United States, Mayfair.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.